Good afternoon, everyone. It is promptly noon Eastern Time. My computer time is a little bit behind, but I'm quite sure it is noon here Eastern Time. Welcome to our Church Windows webinar for accounts payable reports. My name is Joshua. I'm going to be your presenter today. We're going to work for about the next 20 minutes or so, maybe less, depending on the length of the topic here, how long it takes. So if you've never attended a webinar here with us, if you bring up the control panel for your webinar, at the top left or right of the sidebar there, you'll see the little red arrow. This allows you to minimize the webinar control panel, control pane, get it out of the way for you. If you have a single monitor or if you've got a dual monitor setup, just go ahead and drag that off to the second desktop. Also on the webinar control panel, you do have the questions pane there. We keep everyone muted on the webinar. It's very noisy. If we don't keep you muted, if you have questions, please type those in there. However, I do like to advise folks that it is just me today. I do not have someone here answering questions for me. Just based on the topic, I most likely will not be looking at questions until we get to the end of the webinar here. Again, by all means, please type your questions to me. I may try to be able to get to it and answer them, but if not, I may have to hold off until we get to the very end. So again, just be patient with me. I will get to those questions eventually. We're going to, again, work no later than 20 minutes after the hour. If you need to leave at that point, please use the, click File, Exit, Leave Webinar. However, if you do have time and you do have questions, stick around. I will certainly do my best to answer questions for you. All that I do ask is that you do keep them topical, meaning about our accounts payable reports today. I'm not prepared to discuss other portions of the software. So, again, please try to keep your questions to the topic at hand. Before we get started on those, though, I do want to show a few things. This is very typical for the webinars. I wanted to open our Church Windows website here, show you a few things. Down here, let me introduce my highlighter. Here under our support section down the left side, we've got all kinds of options here, but the one I'm wanting to point out specifically is the new version resources and the Church Windows support blog. Those screens are enormously helpful and have all kinds of information about Church Windows. In fact, I know that we are adding new reports here today or between now and the end of this, beginning of next week. So we are going to have some more movies downloaded and made available here soon. There may be some already there now, and I'm just unaware of that. So it says here additional movies coming soon. It's very true now that we're going to have some here, probably at least another 8 or 10 or 12 more here between now and the beginning of next week. We are always upgrading or updating the support blog. So please keep checking the blog. It's not just movies there, it's documents. It is also posted by modules. So if you're looking for all of the documents or items that are posted based on a particular module, you can find those quickly and easily. Hopefully everybody can see my highlighter there. We're getting all kinds of good comments and compliments from folks about both of these pages, so please utilize them. You may find an answer there before a support technician is able to get back to you. Okay, so let's get back to Church Windows here. Our current version of Church Windows is 17.14.4. This is our current version. If you're looking at your Church Windows and you see a different or lower version number than that, please go to the Church Windows website and download the current patch for 17.14.4 or 17.14 for Church Windows to get completely up to date with us. Okay, if you need help or have questions about that, please call us. So we're going to go ahead and open our accounting now. Accounts payable reports. You may use some of these reports more than others. Most of you may work on or probably do work on a cash basis. So the accounts payable reports we're going to cover today may or may not be of use or help for you. Okay, if you enter and pay your bills in the same day, the accounts payable reports may not be of much use for you, okay? But I think, in my support calls, in my experience, there's some use for them for virtually every user at some point, okay? The first thing that we have to cover is where do you find the accounts payable reports? So if we go up to our reports at the very top, the buttons change. We see the menu at the top left labeled Worksheets right here. If we click that little down arrow, then we do see our Worksheets list, and our very top option is Accounts Payable. Okay, I'm going to come back to that. The other way of being able to access the Accounts Payable reports, of course, is to go to Reports, the printer in the center. Down here on the left side, we see all of our accounting reports, including Accounts Payable. So if we highlight that and click Next, or click the right-facing arrow and then click Next, it then reveals essentially the same options we're going to see by going up to our Worksheets list at the very top. Okay. So two ways of being able to access our Accounts Payable reports. I'm very fond of going up to Reports at the top left, choose a single report, clicking in this case Worksheets and choosing Accounts Payable, and it opens the same exact window that we were just looking at when we went through the printer, the multiple report groups in the center. Okay. There are things here. There are 4 report types essentially, and I think that's the first thing we should discuss. Is here under our report type, we have our Accounts Payable list, we have our aging report, our show payments due by, and our Accounts Payable journal. And I'm going to discuss those in detail here over the course of the next 13 or 14 minutes. Okay. One of the very first things that I like to talk when I'm discussing any of the accounting reports that I like to discuss is, as with virtually all of our accounting reports, in order to run a report, if I wanted to run an Accounts Payable report for a prior year, I do not have to physically change my accounting year here in the center, right here. I do not need to change that back to the prior year in order to run the report for a prior year. I can just choose the year that I'm wanting to run the report for from the list right here. So if I click my down arrow here under accounting year, we notice all of my prior accounting years are here. So I can just choose 2014 and then run my Accounts Payable report for that year, whichever report I'm wanting. Okay. But we're going to look at it for 2015. That's the current year. Okay. The Accounts Payable list report is probably the report that I run most on my support calls. Okay. When I'm talking with users on the phone, and here's why. If I go to something like, say, my reports and financial, and I run my balance sheet, and we're working on maybe a cash basis, the question will come up is, we work and live on a cash basis, so why am I seeing a balance right here under Accounts Payable? Okay, I've paid all my bills. Okay. They're already paid. So why am I showing for the month of June a balance in my Accounts Payable under my year-to-date column? Okay, that's the most common question, and the most common question I get about it, and it's where I most effectively use the Accounts Payable list report. Okay. So to the right of our Accounts Payable list, it's the default in the list, is when you open the Accounts Payable Reports options window, it defaults to choosing Accounts Payable list, until you run a report, another report, and then it'll just remember your last selection. So we can ask the system to also show us any unpaid invoices and to include a vendors with a zero balance. I'll explain why a vendors with a zero balance might be helpful for you here in just a little bit. But if we don't choose show unpaid invoices and we don't include vendors with a zero balance, and I simply click print, it's going to reveal a list of any of my vendors that make up the current balance in that account, in my Accounts Payable ledger account. Okay. So yes, I probably do want to go in and look and see if there are any unpaid invoices. But if simply we're questioning the balance that makes up that ledger account, this report clearly shows us which one of our, half a dozen vendors are making up the balance as of June 19th in that Accounts Payable ledger account. So I will generally advise, let's print this report. We'll go in and we can now investigate each one of these individual vendor accounts to show why they have a balance. Okay. Even if the balance were negative, it would show up in here, which happens. Okay. So from a very basic standpoint, if I've got a question about Accounts Payable on my balance sheet, this is the report I'm generally going to run first. I want to see what vendors have a balance. Okay. Mary Lee's asking, could there be a total in the accounts payable vendor list? That would be something we'd have to get into suggestions, Mary Lee, so please call us and we'll be happy to get into suggestions for you. There isn't on this report, but there is when I do show unpaid invoices. So if we close out of the report and I check show unpaid invoices, I click print. Here's the total of my unpaid invoices, and down here I do have a total down here, total of unpaid invoices. So it does include a total when I check to include unpaid invoices, but not when I choose to just show vendors with a balance, essentially. Why that occurred, I wish I could answer for you. I mean, why it shows a total for one but not the other, I don't know. Okay. So you may just choose to come in and show total unpaid invoices, and it still will include the balance for each one of those, vendor accounts that we're looking at. Here's the balance right here. But I always start simply, so if we're just looking to see which vendors make up that balance, don't check on show unpaid invoices. You can. The invoices certainly are important. All right. So I had advised earlier that I would say, okay, why would there might be a time when we might want to include vendors with a zero balance? Honestly, more often than you suspect, I do get a call from users who say, hey Josh, I want a list of all of my vendors with all of the information that I have about them. And I also maybe want to export that. So right here we would uncheck or check includes vendors with a zero balance. I would choose my fields. I would leave uncheck my current balance, leaving, but here's my, address information, so I can just choose to add over, all of my vendor number, city, state, basically all of the information that I have about the vendor, phone information, fax, email, what have you. And then from there, I can click on print or export, and here's a listing of all of my vendors with all of the information that I have, at least basic address, city, state, zip, phone, email, and vendor number. Okay, and I can even go so far as to go up to the top here, and under my export options, export report, I can export it in a variety of file formats, just like I do any other, accounting report. I can just export it and move it into Excel or as a text document to put into like Word or something. There's all kinds of options. But I actually get this request quite often, at least a couple times a month. I want a list of all of my vendors to find out what information I have about them and what I don't. This report is a nice, easy way to do that, quick and easy. Okay. Yeah, I probably do then when I'm done with that, I do want to, close out or reorder or change my fields back to, maybe ones that I do want more often than not. So I would remove everything and then simply just move over current balance again and click print to get back to where I was. It's entirely up to you. This is your, these are your reports. It's flexible enough to support virtually anything you want to do. Okay. All right. So our accounts payable list, very helpful when we just want to, see what's making, what vendors have a balance and maybe what makes up our total accounts payable ledger balance on our balance sheet. Okay. Aging report. It shows vendors of a certain, of invoices of a certain age. Now, this is occasionally this type of situation pops up, folks, and I want to make sure that you're aware is that we're subject to bugs in the program as much as you are finding those. And when I was as I was developing this webinar today, I came across a bug in our aging report. Okay, so here when I choose aging report and I click print, we notice here as I zoom in on the aging report, I've got invoices that are dated back, a fair amount of time here, and I've done that deliberately, but we notice that each one of them say less than 30 days, and that's the bug. Well, it should be saying less than 30 days, less than 60 days, less than 90 days. So our developers have got that on a fix list, and that should be hopefully fixed in the next service release for Church Windows, whenever that may be. I don't have any information about that. So just FYI, you may not use this report terribly often. I mean, one of the things I was asking myself is how long has this been broken, and and honestly, we haven't heard from a user about it to put it on a fixed list. It could have been something in 17 that broke it. It could have been, broken for a couple of versions. Accounting's been out since 2008. It was working at some point. But what will happen is when the bug is fixed, it will put the invoices in the less than 30, 60, and 90 days in the proper order and display the invoices that are outstanding. Okay. But basically, it just, again, shows you a list of any invoices which are unpaid of a certain age. Okay. Virtually all accounts payable or payable systems will have an aging report of some kind, and ours is no different. Okay. In order to display outstanding invoices, and this kind of ties back to our actual accounts payable list report, is I can only check and show unpaid invoices when there is an invoice number entered for the report. Okay. If there's it will show an unpaid invoice, like it'll say no number entered if I have it. Okay. So like under my, let's go back to our show unpaid invoices here. And notice it'll show those with an invoice number and a due date, but if there is no due date and no number entered, it will show like it does here under Big City Utilities. It'll say no number and there'll be no due date. Okay, so the more information that you enter about the invoices, if you have them, the better. Karen's asking, are you going to show how to get rid of balances if bills have been actually paid? Karen, I'm not going to cover that today. We don't have time. I'm sorry. There is going to be another movie that's going to be on the website later today, or again here shortly, that's going to show a recording of a previous invoice for how to mark bills as paid. Yeah, unfortunately, there's not enough time for that. And our show payments due by is a report that will simply show payments that are due by a specific date. Okay, so if I leave it as I want to show all of my payments that are due by the end of June, I simply enter the date of my choosing, click on print, and it'll show all of my payments that have a due date that's entered as of June 30th. But you do have to enter a due date for the report, for the bill, in order for that to happen. If there's no due date entered, there's no way the system can calculate a payments due by report for you. Okay. And finally, one of personally my favorite reports. I think it's really underutilized a lot. Again, if you're living and working on a cash basis, entering and paying your bills virtually, in the same month or at least in the same day many times, this journal may not provide much help for you. If we click it, notice it reveals a list of all of our vendors. I'm going to show you how you can choose one vendor for it, of course, but if you don't choose a single vendor from the list and you simply click on print, it shows us all of the transactions which have occurred for a specific vendor within the respective accounting period. Okay, so for 2015, let me zoom in a little bit here. Here's my ABC preschool supply house. It shows all of the bills that I've entered for that vendor. It shows the beginning balance for the year, charges and payments, or bills and payments, and the current balance. Then it moves into the next vendor and shows the same thing. American Electric Power, so it shows the transaction number, the expense account, the account name, the date it occurred, what type of transaction it was, the amount, and then the running balance. And then it moves in, so it shows all of our transactions posted to each vendor. So this is the report that really does show bills and payments together in one location. Okay, we get that question a fair amount because the bill and the vendor is what ties the bill to the payment. Okay, so when you have questions about the transactions that are posting bills and payments, I recommend coming in and running this accounts payable journal report and running it for the specific vendor. So if I type in here American Electric Power, here's my American Electric Power, click print, here's all of my bills and payments for 2015. It also even shows down at the very bottom here, notice we've got our actual total accounts payable vendor balance. So right here, accounts payable vendor ending balance. So it shows for American Electric Power total charges, total payment, and that I owe them absolutely nothing. There's no balance waiting to pay. I think this is a really great report. So you may want to add it to your list of reports that perhaps if you don't distribute them to your folks, you may want to begin using it yourself if you have questions about vendors. Okay, so that's our 20 minutes, folks. I'm going to wrap things up right there. Again, if you have to, move on to with your day, by all means, thank you so much for attending. Please choose the file and exit webinar, leave webinar. Thank you so much. We hope to see you at another future webinar. Oh, yes, by the way, the current list of the July webinars are already up on our website, so you may want to check those out, to look and plan for your webinars for next month as well. But I'm happy to answer questions here. John's asking, how do I specify the as of date if I need to run an AP report for a time period other than today? That's a really great question. Really, there is no date range on this. It's basically always, John, a comparison of today and what's simply outstanding. Which kind of ties back to the other question is, maybe, I've actually had users who came in and they ran the accounts payable list report. They go, wow, I've run my, my balance sheet and I've got an accounts payable balance, a vendor's balance in my balance sheet as of, say, May 30th. And then I have them come in and run the accounts payable list and they click print and they go, wow, it says no vendors with a balance, nothing to show. Well, that then probably implies then maybe we've got bills that were entered in one month and paid in the other. But there is no way to enter a date here other than payments due by. It's always in a comparison to the date we're sitting at the computer. So that's a really good question. By all means, call us, get our customer number in the system, your customer number in the system with us. John will be happy to get that into suggestions for you. I just don't have your customer number information with me now. But yeah, that's a great question. There is no way to enter a date other than show payments with a specific due date by. I mean, there are ways that we can actually go in and look at unpaid bills as of a specific day, but we can't find it here under Accounts Payable Reports. Yeah. You're welcome, Karen. Thank you so much for attending. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions coming in. Oh, thank you, John. I appreciate it. I like to think I'm prepared for these. Thank you all. All right, I'm going to go ahead and, again, unless somebody's typing in a really lengthy question here, I'm going to go ahead and we are recording this webinar today, so at some point when it's produced, we will have it out on our website on the new current version resources page. We hope it's been helpful, and thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you at another Church Windows User Group webinar. Thank you very much. Take care. Have a good day. Bye-bye.